In 2003, 4 elite American soldiers vanished in Iraq. No bodies, no gear, not even footprints left behind. The military buried the case. But 2 decades later, a journalist uncovers a trail of classified files, secret prisons, and a truth so disturbing it was never meant to be found. What he discovers will haunt you and change everything you thought you knew about war. Stay with us till the end, because the final twist will leave you speechless. Don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing real-life mysteries and dark truths revealed. The heat didn't feel like heat anymore. It felt like pressure, like something heavy pressing down from above, beneath, and within, trying to force its way inside. August 14th, 2003, 2:17 a.m. Outskirts of Al-Haditha, Iraq, Red Zone Delta, 19 miles northwest of Haditha Dam. The 4 men didn't scream. No ganfayerikov, no radios kraklev. One moment they were there. The next, they weren't. It was called Recon Sector 9, a desolate strip of land bordered by half-collapsed buildings and unmarked roads, all chewed up by tanks and time. Locals called it Wadi al-Sukut, Valley of Silence. Even the translator didn't like saying the name aloud. For soldiers from Alpha Company, 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment were on night patrol. Sergeant Darnell Cortez, 28, Bronx-born, 6 years in. Calm under fire. Corporal Eli Novak, 24, Pennsylvania farm boy, turned radio op. Specialist Owen Ramsey, 26, quiet, sharp-eyed, rarely spoke. Private First Class Mason Riley, 21, the youngest. Fresh out of Georgia, barely seasoned. First deployment. Their last known location was grid reference 17 Kilo Charlie. A rusted checkpoint tower, half sunk in rubble. No enemy movement. No Yiddish signatures. No anomalies reported. It was supposed to be a ghost patrol. But the last radio transmission at 2:16 and 48 seconds a.m. was a broken whisper from Ramsey. Something's not right out here. Novak thinks we're being watched. Feels off. Feels like. Then static. No code words. No escrim. No gunfire. Just gone. By 2:19, base command had lost all comms. At 2:23, a second patrol was scrambled. By 2:51, when they reached the site, all 4 men were missing. No gear, no tracks, no blood, no bodies. The dust was undisturbed, as if the desert itself had erased them. The commander, Captain Weller, stared out into the wasteland and muttered one word over and over. Impossible. But it wasn't impossible. It happened. Over the next 72 hours, Delta Zone was sealed off. Blackhawks thundered in and out. Thermal scans, ground-penetrating radar, drone sweeps, nothing. Not even heat signatures. It was like they had never been there. That was the official version. Unofficially, according to the medics, a 3rd team found something at 4:02 a.m. on August 15th. Something they never reported. Something they were later ordered to dismiss. Scorched patterns in the sand. Circular. Twisted. Like something had spun the ground from below. 3 men reportedly began vomiting at the site. 1 fainted. The 4th took photos. Those files were later corrupted beyond recovery. That soldier, a 1st lieutenant from Recon Unit Echo, was reassigned within 24 hours. The next morning, he was on a plane back to Fort Bragg. He never spoke about what he saw. Back in the U.S., the families were told the truth, but not the whole truth. Presumed MIA in hostile territory. Ongoing investigation. Highly sensitive operation. It meant nothing. It answered nothing. Darnell Cortez's mother, Angela, received the call at 6:42 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. She dropped the phone. She didn't cry, just stared, stunned, then screamed the name of her son over and over until neighbors came running. Eli Novak's parents in Pittsburgh were told by a uniformed officer with hollow eyes. His father punched a wall. His mother collapsed onto the living room carpet, clutching Eli's high school baseball cap. Mason Riley's sister, Rachel, demanded to fly to Iraq. She didn't believe a word. And Owen Ramsey's father didn't answer the door for hours. He just sat in the dark, rocking back and forth, whispering, "I told him not to go." But none of them gave up. Angela Cortez quit her job and became a one-woman army. She contacted veterans, journalists, podcasters, old CIA friends of her late husband, even conspiracy radio shows. She created a website, wherearethefour.com, that grew into a movement. She went on television, demanding answers. These are American soldiers. They don't just vanish without a trace. My son didn't die. He didn't run. He was taken. People scoffed. Others listened. Rumors started swirling. Black sites, psychic warfare, even alien abduction made it into one podcast episode. She didn't care. She just wanted her son back. Months turned to years. By 2005, morale among the families had cracked. Eli's father turned to alcohol. Mason's sister stopped attending vigils. Owen's parents filed for divorce. Angela kept fighting, but her eyes started looking past people like she was seeing something else. Or someone else. A soldier named Private Lee Carradine, who had served with the Four, died by suicide in early 2006. In his note were only 2 lines. They shouldn't have gone into that building. Tell Angela not to stop. The Army denied he was connected to the incident, but Angela's resolve only grew sharper. The building mentioned? There was no record, no report, nothing matching. Until she met Staff Sergeant Delaney, dishonorably discharged in 2004 for reasons unknown. He claimed to know the location, Sector 9, said the 4 soldiers weren't supposed to be there, so they were chasing something on their own. Not orders, not protocol. They saw lights, he said in a motel parking lot in El Paso, coming out of the ground. It wasn't artillery. It pulsed, like it was alive. Delaney died 3 weeks later in a hit and run. The driver was never found. By 2008, the case was cold. No leads, no remains, just one desert, 4 names, and a growing list of people who went looking and didn't like what they found. Until July 2nd, 2009, a British oil surveyor named Colin Draper was taking seismic readings 5 kilometers west of the original disappearance site. His drone malfunctioned and crashed into a nearby sinkhole. When they pulled it out, the memory card had captured footage, grainy, sun-glared, but unmistakable. A U.S. Army dog tag, half buried in the sand, next to something metallic. But it wasn't rusted. It was glowing. That tag belonged to Eli Novak. The footage made its way through unofficial channels until it hit the inbox of an old Pentagon analyst named Carl Wynn, who once supervised the original search effort. He didn't reply to the sender. He didn't report it. Instead, he made a single phone call. They're not dead. We need to reopen this. That was the moment everything began to unravel. Because what the oil team would find 2 weeks later wasn't just a dog tag. It wasn't even human. And it would lead to the one place the Army swore never existed. Sector 9, the place where they were taken, and the truth that would destroy everything. The video was only 19 seconds long, but it played in Carl Wynn's head for the next 19 nights. Grainy, shaky, sun-glared. The drone footage was useless to most people. But Carl had seen enough recon in his 37 years in Army intelligence to know when something wasn't just an artifact of light. He froze the video at frame 13 seconds and zoomed in. There it was, half buried in the rippling sand. A dog tag, glinting unnaturally, but it wasn't reflecting the sun. It was emitting something, and next to it, metal. Not rusted, not military. Something smooth, curved, embedded in the earth like the edge of a hatch. And what disturbed him the most wasn't what he saw, but what he felt. The tag read, Novak, YLIM. Still shiny. No erosión. No corrosión. Not a scratch. 6 years in the desert, and it looked like it had just been pressed. Impossible. Unless it hadn't been in the desert until recently. Carl hadn't touched anything related to the case since 2003. He'd been silenced, stonewalled, and eventually reassigned after asking too many questions. But this footage had cracked something open inside him and inside the case. He pulled out a single manila folder from a false bottom drawer in his home office in Virginia, marked in black ink, Operation Nightground, Sector 9 incident. Inside, 3 aerial images classified, 1 debrief transcript redacted so heavily it was just a black rectangle, and a photo. The photo he'd never shown anyone. It was taken on August 15th, 2003, by a recon drone during the initial sweep. It showed a wide shot of the patrol path, a few scattered rocks, and one odd detail. A perfect circular impression in the ground, about 12 feet wide, just southwest of the rusted checkpoint. It wasn't a bomb crater. It wasn't even indented. It was scorched, not burnt, branded, like something had pulsed through the sand, leaving only its memory behind. Carl knew he had two options: bring it to the new guys at intelligence and watch it get buried again, or go rogue. He chose the second. By August 2009, Carl had secured a flight to Jordan and arranged a private escort into Iraq via a former SDS operative named Ridley, who now worked black market extractions. Carl posed as an oil logistics consultant. The lie wasn't far from the truth. He crossed the border by night. Within 2 days, they reached Al-Haditha, and that was when things started to feel wrong. The locals remember the soldiers, not the ones who vanished. No, they never even knew they were there. They remember the teams that came after, the ones who dug holes, who used machines that shook the ground, who paid people to say nothing. One elderly shopkeeper named Basim whispered, "Your men, they opened something they should not have." He refused to speak further. Carl's gut turned. He'd heard the phrase before, from Delaney 6 years ago. The same exact words. They headed out at dawn on August 22nd, 2009. No military presence. The war had shifted east. Just sand, bones of buildings, and sun that never forgave. By 12:42 p.m., they reached the sinkhole, the one where the drone had crashed weeks earlier. The oil company had moved out. The hole was untouched. Quiet. Still. But something was wrong. The air tasted metallic. And beneath the silence, there was a low hum. Too low to hear, but you could feel it in your teeth, like a static vibration in your skull. Carl stepped down. One hand brushed against the edge of the pit, and he recoiled. The soil was cold. That was impossible. In the Iraqi desert at noon? But there it was, ice cold to the touch, as if it had just been pulled from a freezer. And then he saw it, barely peeking from beneath the sand, now visible from the erosion at the edge, a metal plate. Curved, seamless, silver gray with no bolts, no hinges, no writing. Just smooth and pulsing faintly. Ridley took 3 photos before his camera died. Not battery dead. Just died, screen black, lens stuck. That night, back at the safe house in Haditha, Carl sent one image through an encrypted email to only one person, Angela Cortez. It arrived at 3:17 a.m. Eastern Time. She didn't sleep for the next 3 days. Angela had never stopped searching. She had no money left, no friends who hadn't left. But she had a wall, and on that wall was a map. And on that map, a red thread from New York to Iraq. And beside it, a note in her son's handwriting. "If I don't come back, I'm still out there." She booked a flight to Amman with money she didn't have, forged medical documents to get clearance. And by September 3rd, 2009, she was standing in the same desert that had swallowed her son. When she saw the hatch, she collapsed. Not from grief, from memory, because she'd seen it before, in a dream she had on August 14th, 2003, the night they disappeared. In the dream, Darnell was standing in a field of ash. He wasn't wearing a uniform. He was barefoot, smiling. Behind him, a metal circle, humming, glowing, like a heartbeat. She had never told anyone that dream, not even her therapist. She had thought it was grief. Now, she wasn't sure. Carl didn't believe in supernatural things. But even he admitted the coincidence was disturbing. They dug. By September 5th, the team had unearthed more of the object. It wasn't a hatch. It wasn't a door. It was a disc, about 11 feet across, half buried. No identifiable markings. One geologist they bribed suggested it was not man-made. The alloy couldn't be matched. There was no rust, no seams, no reaction to flame, acid, or percussion. Until 2:12 a.m., Angela touched it. Only her. Only once. And the disc lit up. A spiral of lights bloomed from the center outward, glowing pale blue, then white, then red. And then the lights flickered off. The ground shook. And about 30 feet away, the sand began to sink. What emerged next would send every government scrambling and would make global headlines within a month. Because 4 MRE bags rose up from the ground. Military issued. Fresh. Still sealed. Manufactured in August 2009. Stamped with 4 names. Cortez. Novak. Ramsey. Riley. Carl dropped to his knees. Angela wept. Ridley pulled his pistol, as if expecting something to climb out next. Nothing did. The following morning, U.S. satellites picked up abnormal heat signatures in Sector 9. Within 48 hours, the area was sealed by joint forces under the guise of a biohazard containment drill. Angela was detained. Interrogated. Carl was blacklisted. But before she was taken, Angela mailed a package to Rachel Riley, Mason's sister. Inside, one of the MREs, and a voice recorder. On it, only one sentence. Muffled. Static-laced. But clear. We're still here. Don't forget us. The first time Rachel Riley played the recording, she nearly dropped it. It didn't sound like her brother. Not exactly. The voice was deeper, as if echoing from behind glass or from the bottom of a well. But it was Mason. She'd heard that tone only once before, when he called from boot camp, scared but trying to hide it. We're still here. Don't forget us. She played it again, and again. Every time, a strange hum vibrated through her kitchen, so low it rattled the dishes. She didn't sleep that night. The package had arrived without a return address. Just a plain manila envelope, the handwriting shaky. Inside was the sealed MRE, still warm. That was the first impossibility. The second came when she brought the food packet to a local lab. A friend owed her a favor. The contents were pristine. Protein levels still fresh. 0 bacteria. Date stamped. August 11th, 2009. A full 6 years after Mason vanished. The technician raised an eyebrow. Did your brother just send this from a bunker? Rachel didn't answer, because in that moment, she knew he was alive. But where? She spent the next week contacting Angela Cortez. No answer. Carl Wynn? Gone off the grid. The last anyone had seen him, he was boarding a charter flight from Amman to Berlin under a different name. Rachel went public. She uploaded the recording to the site Angela had created years ago. WhereAreThe4.com. Within 12 hours, the site was hacked and taken down. Within 24, she had 2 men in black suits knocking at her door, claiming to be from Army intelligence. They confiscated everything. The MRE, the recorder, even her laptop. What they didn't find was the backup she had hidden in a cereal box. She sent it to 5 people. Trusted friends. Journalists. Experts. One of them, Liam Kroll, a war correspondent turned underground investigator, went silent 2 days later. His apartment in Chicago was found trashed, his hard drives melted inside his bathtub. Rachel was now a target, but she didn't care. She booked a flight. By September 24th, 2009, she was in Jordan, and by the 27th, standing at the edge of Sector 9, or what remained of it. The disk was gone. The entire site had been wiped clean. Not just the structure, the topography itself had been altered. Sand flattened, drone towers erected, surveillance in every direction. But Rachel had inherited Angela's stubbornness. She snuck in. 2 miles from the old sinkhole, under cover of night, she found something they hadn't buried. A shoe. Military issue. Faded. Sun-bleached. Stamped inside the sole. Riley M. Size 10R. It was confirmation. It was proof. But what came next was something no one could have prepared for. At 3:11 a.m., the earth trembled. Not an earthquake. Not an explosion. A pulse. Low. Like a bass note played through the bones of the earth. Rachel fell to her knees as the sand rippled outward from a single point, about 50 yards away, and then something rose from the earth. Not a hatch. Not a machine. A man, covered in dust. Naked. Emaciated. Eyes closed. Rachel screamed, but then froze. Because as the wind cleared the sand, she saw his face. Mason, he collapsed. 3 days later. Al-Haditha Military Hospital, undisclosed wing. The doctors didn't know what to make of him. No wounds, no infections, but his DNA matched exactly. It was Mason Riley. The man who had vanished in 2003 was now 27 years old. except he still looked 21. Unaged, untouched by time, but his brain scans lit up like lightning storms. When Rachel spoke to him, his words were scattered, like pieces of memories threaded together. We didn't die. We went down. No sky. They showed us things. Cortez was first. He screamed forever. They said the desert is older than the stars. He wept. He laughed. He spoke in voices that didn't sound like his own. Then, suddenly, he whispered, "They're still down there," and slipped into a coma. The U.S. government classified the entire event. Rachel was forced into silence under threat of treason. Yes, treason, for possessing classified biological evidence. But the story didn't end there. Because 3 weeks later, in a different desert, this time in Nevada, a second man appeared. Corporal Eli Novak, found walking along a highway, naked, covered in sand, eyes open but black, no iris, no pupil. When local police tried to detain him, he collapsed and began screaming in multiple voices at once. They weren't human screams. He was transported to Area 51, and that's where the trail vanished again. But not for Carl Wynn. Still alive, still searching. He connected the dots. 2 soldiers returned, both near seismic events, both sites tied to strange magnetic readings, recorded weeks in advance. He proposed something insane, even to himself. They weren't taken to another country or another base. They were taken somewhere beneath, a layer under our reality, a loop in space, a fracture in time buried deep inside the earth. Angela believed it. Rachel feared it. But Carl wanted to go there. By December 2009, he had funded an illegal dig team, contractors, mercenaries, 2 rogue scientists, and returned to the last known signal zone near Sector 9. They drilled down. Not miles, just meters. But the deeper they went, the colder it became. And then the metal returned. Not disks, not machines, structures. Walls made of no material on the periodic table. Seamless, breathing. And inside them, echoes. Not sound, not voices, but memories. The men started seeing things. One worker, Ollie, dropped his pickaxe and began shouting about his dead daughter. Only he'd never had a child. Another, Miker, screamed that Darnell Cortez was behind him, whispering something in a language no one could understand. Carl felt it too. Not hallucinations. Projections from somewhere beyond the walls. They were alive, but not alone. On the 7th day, Carl vanished. Just gone. His tent intact. No signs of struggle. The last entry in his field notebook read, "The walls are breathing now. I can hear the 4th heartbeat." Back in the U.S., February 2010, the military shut it down. Official statement: unauthorized excavation in restricted territory. All assets seized. No mention of Carl, or the returned soldiers, or the 3rd pulse event, because yes, there was a third emergence. In the Congo, in a crater untouched by modern tools, a man stumbled out of the trees, naked and covered in a thin, ash-like dust. He claimed his name was Sergeant Darnell Cortez. The last of the 4 still missing was Owen Ramsey. But Darnell brought with him something none of the others did. A warning. One he repeated over and over again until the military sedated him. Don't dig. Don't open. Don't bring them back. They show me the last sky, the one that comes after us. Here is part 4, the final installment of your horror suspense thriller about the 4 soldiers who vanished in Iraq in 2003. This final chapter delivers the ultimate reveals, the terrifying truth behind Sector 9, the final fate of Owen Ramsey, and the global implications that follow. It's cinematic, emotional, and deeply disturbing without involving murder, staying true to your request. The last soldier came back on a night when the stars disappeared. April 14th, 2010, 2:06 a.m. Northern Jordan, Zayatari Refugee Corridor. The Air Patrol first noticed the black patch at 1:47 a.m., a strange absence in the sky. Not cloud, not shadow, just nothing. An area where starlight refused to shine and no satellite could penetrate. The shape held for precisely 19 minutes. At 2:06, a single man stepped out from the darkness. He was barefoot, wrapped in a shredded combat uniform, rank insignia nearly dust. He collapsed just 10 meters from the outer humanitarian camp. When medics rushed to him, they saw his name tag. Ramsey Owen. He had aged. The others hadn't. Mason had come back looking 21. Ellie, Coxicamintanelia. Darnell, a little grayer, but still frozen in time. But Ramsey? He looked like a man who had lived several lifetimes in a single body. Hair white, skin lined like dry earth, fingernails broken and ragged. His eyes were the worst, black ringed with pale blue, as if the last thing he'd seen had been burned into them. They sedated him, scanned him. Blood pressure irregular. Core temperature 92 degrees Fahrenheit. Brain activity spiking off charts never designed for what they were now recording. He wasn't just thinking, he was receiving. Constant, pulsing waves of data, memory, emotion. Language structures never before recorded. Sounds that made instruments malfunction. For 72 hours, Owen said nothing, until the lights in the medical tent flickered. And then, he whispered a phrase that chilled every attending officer. They let me go because I made them a promise. No one knew what that meant. Not until he started drawing. He filled 67 pages in a single day. Spirals, circles, rings inside rings, schematics for things that did not exist on Earth, maps with coordinates in 3 dimensions, some of which weren't even possible unless time was included as a variable. The military took the drawings, burned them, but someone saved copies. Someone who would later sell them to private research syndicates who believed they weren't just diagrams. They were instructions. Carl Wins recovered notes. Yes, Carl resurfaced later, more on that soon, confirmed what the military had suspected but couldn't prove. The 4 soldiers weren't taken by insurgents, or foreign enemies, or natural disasters. They were taken by an intelligence buried beneath the earth, older than language, deeper than oceans, locked inside geometries we still can't understand. Angela Cortez called it the hollow below. Carl called it Sector 9's womb. Ramsey called it the chamber. And this is what he finally revealed. They had entered the rusted checkpoint on August 14th, 2003, after Novak noticed the compass on his watch spinning erratically. Ramsey, curious, led them off the patrol path. He found a narrow fissure in the ground. Not deep, but just wide enough to slip through. They descended. The tunnel curved down for what felt like miles, though none of them ever got tired or hungry. They had no sense of time. Cortez's watch stopped. Eventually, the path opened into a chamber made of seamless metal, walls smooth and reflective, like black mercury. The space echoed with their own memories. Images appeared on the surface, their mothers, their childhood homes, their own reflections, but altered. Each soldier was separated. Mason was shown a version of his sister dead in a car crash he was told he could prevent if he stayed. Novak was offered a world without war, but only if he gave up his identity. Cortez saw the face of his dead father and was asked one question. What would you trade for the truth? Ramsey never said what he was shown, only that he said yes. Back in 2010, Ramsey's drawings triggered alarms in every major intelligence community. CIA, Mossad, MI6 all had eyes on the hospital. But something happened no one expected. On April 21st, 2010, the lights at the U.S. base blacked out for 7 minutes. No generators. No emergency response. Surveillance cameras caught only one moment of activity. Owen Ramsey walking calmly out of his medical tent, barefoot, eyes glowing, holding nothing. But in the morning, everyone who had contact with him, doctors, officers, guards, reported the same dream. A tower of light beneath the earth, rising slowly, humming with ancient vibrations. And a voice, always the same phrase. We will remember who opened the door. Ramsey was never seen again. Carlwyn resurfaced in late 2011, living under the name Thomas Blake in northern Canada. He'd gone into hiding after losing his team at the second dig site, but resurfaced when 3 children in Peru began drawing the same spirals from Ramsey's sketches, with no connection to the case. Angela never recovered. She died of a stroke in 2013, clutching a photo of Darnell, who still lived in a restricted VA facility, silent. He hadn't spoken since the night he came back. Eli Novak had disappeared from Area 51 records. Unconfirmed reports claimed he'd been transferred to an unlisted facility in Antarctica. Others say he never stopped screaming. Mason? Mason was the only one who tried to go back to normal. He moved to Colorado, tried to get a job, saw a therapist, but once every few months, he'd wake up in the middle of the night, walk out into the woods barefoot, and sit there until morning. One night, he carved something into a tree, a spiral, and a sentence. They listened through the soil now. The final confirmation came in 2016, when seismic activity was recorded in 12 sites across the globe, all connected by triangulated patterns pulled directly from Ramsey sketches. All 12 pulses were identical, low, resonant, and brief. Each time, afterward, someone disappeared. A child in Norway, a scientist in Indonesia, a homeless veteran in Los Angeles. None of them were found, but every location had one thing in common: a perfect 11-foot circle scorched into the ground, just like the one back in Iraq. Just like Sector 9, the U.S. and allied governments declared the incident anomalous and closed. But underground communities still track the events. Angela's original website was revived, now renamed thearesstillhere.net. And once every year, on August 14th, someone uploads a new file. A photograph, a video, an audio clip, all featuring the same whisper, repeated in different languages. We are the hollow that remembers. We wait for the last soldier. We wait for the breach. In 2025, a research station in Siberia drilled into the ice and found a metal surface, one not listed on any geological map. The drillers never came back, but their last transmission said one thing: we hear him. And somewhere in the forests of Colorado, a man named Mason Riley still wakes up with dirt under his fingernails and dreams of a sky that hums below the ground. He's never spoken about what they really saw, or what Ramsey promised, or what waits beneath. Only this: they let us go because we saw too much. Ramsey stayed because he became one of them, and one day, he'll bring them back. When Major Carla Duvall stepped away from the command tent, the heat from the Iraqi sun couldn't compete with the burning dread in her chest. The photo was real. The coordinates were real. And now they stood on the edge of something that made everything else, every war story, every briefing, every buried secret, feel like a children's tale. The sun dipped behind the jagged hills of Al Anbar, bleeding the sky into a bruised red as the choppers descended into the remote site marked in the photo, a place not on any official map. It took 4 hours to reach it on foot after landing. The desert here had an unnatural stillness, the kind that made even seasoned soldiers glance at shadows twice. The ruins they found were not ancient nor modern. They were wrong. Half-submerged concrete bunkers covered in decades of sand, half-melted wiring, rusted satellites, walls marked with indecipherable script, Russian, perhaps, or something else entirely. As they descended into the first chamber, the signal interference grew stronger. Radios died. GPS failed. The only sound were their own breathing and the faint mechanical whine coming from deep within the earth, like something enormous still stirred underground. Duvall's team moved carefully, lighting up the darkness with tactical torches. On one of the walls, they found a mural, burnt into the concrete as if scorched by plasma. For figures with American uniforms, heads bowed, standing in front of a metal door that glowed in the painting like the sun. Their name tags were legible. It was them. Staff Sergeant Harlan Voss, Corporal Eli Mendez, Specialist Deshaun Brewer, and Sergeant Layla Hart. And beneath the painting, smeared in something too dark and too sticky to be paint, a phrase in broken English: "We are the warning, not the lost." "Jesus," whispered one of the privates, backing away. Further inside, the corridor tightened. Claustrophobic, the air grew cooler. The lights flickered in and out, and somewhere ahead, the humming deepened into a throbbing pulse, as if the very walls had a heartbeat. The final room was circular, metal-lined. In the center, a glass pod, shattered. Medical equipment encircled it, clearly retrofitted from multiple generations of tech. Soviet, American, unknown. Everything was covered in dust, except for a chair in the corner. And in that chair sat a man. Pale, gaunt, eyes open, breathing. They nearly shot him on instinct, until he whispered, "Don't wake them." The man's face was sunken, beard wild, but the dog tags around his neck told the truth. Voss. He had aged only slightly, as if 2 decades had passed like 2 months. He blinked slowly as Duval approached. "They didn't take us," he said. "We volunteered. We thought we were helping. God, we were so wrong." She knelt beside him. "What do you mean? Where are the others?" He looked toward the pod. One tried to escape. Layla. She saw what they were doing, what the experiments really meant. How they weren't using us to survive. They were using us to test their control. We became conduits. His hand trembled as he reached for Duval's collar. There are more of these places. Not just here. Not just Iraq. Under old bases. Hidden in plain sight. Not just us. It was never just us. Suddenly, the walls began to vibrate. A low growl echoed through the metal, not of a beast, but something mechanical, vast, intelligent. "Run," Voss said with his last ounce of strength. Duval grabbed her radio. It sparked and died. She screamed for the team to evacuate, and they ran back through the winding halls, chased by that unearthly rumble growing louder with every breath. When they breached the surface, a light shot up from the entrance, like a column of lightning cracking through the desert sky. Then silence. The entrance caved in behind them. The site was gone. In the debrief weeks later, Voss's body was never recovered. The coordinates were wiped. Command claimed there had never been a mission. Duval and the surviving team were scattered, reassigned, silenced. But the story spread through back channels, through whispers. And then came the tapes, sent anonymously to Layla Hart's father. 6 audio reels, recorded in 2004. Each tape more horrific than the last. Whispers, screams, warnings. Chanting in a language no linguist could identify. The sound of bone being cut, of minds breaking. One tape simply contained hours of silence, punctuated every 5 minutes by the same voice, Layla's, saying, "Please don't listen anymore. Please, just forget me." By 2010, the families were shells of their former selves. The Hart family moved to Montana, then vanished without a trace. The Mendez home burned down in what was ruled an accidental fire, though no accelerant was found. Brewer's parents died in a car crash, both decapitated, despite wearing seatbelts and no other injuries present. Only one family remained. Harlan Voss's sister, Andrea. She released the tapes online against all legal threats. The recordings went viral, then were systematically scrubbed from the internet. Those who heard them firsthand reported insomnia, hallucinations, nosebleeds, and in some cases suicide. Andrea disappeared weeks later. But in 2015, something resurfaced. A photograph mailed to Duval, no return address. For figures standing outside a gas station in Nevada. One looked like Layla, her face older, her eyes hollow. On the back, scrawled in black ink, "They let us out, but we're not the same. Don't find us. Don't try. They're watching through us. This time, they want the whole world." The investigation was reopened quietly. Black files reclassified. New reports of similar disappearances in Ukraine, Alaska, northern Syria. Same pattern. Same silence. The government never confirmed anything. The public never knew. But Duval did, and so did those families. Those who had touched the edges of that unspeakable truth and lived to scream about it. The soldiers weren't victims. They were test subjects for something beyond human. Something that had used war zones as feeding grounds, feeding not on blood, but belief, loyalty, and will. And once broken, the soldiers returned, not as people, but as seeds. Seeds of something waiting to bloom. And beneath the silence of the earth, across buried bunkers and forgotten ruins, the hum continues. Always just beneath the surface. Waiting.